9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see how high it went.
Welcome. This is how to build a water rocket. In this video, we will introduce what a water rocket is, the materials that are needed to build a water rocket, how to build each part of the water rocket, how to decorate the water rocket, and how to launch the water rocket. Let's get started. This is a water rocket. This is what we will be building today. The water rocket is broken into 3 different parts. There's the body of the water rocket, that's where the water goes, and the air pressure is built up. The payload of the rocket is where you can place something to be launched. You can launch an egg, you can launch a camera. That is also where the altimeter goes. And the nose cone of the rocket. That is where the parachute is placed. This is how a water rocket works. Water is poured into the body of the rocket. The rocket is placed on the launch pad. A tire pump increases the pressure in the body of the rocket. Once the launching mechanism is released, the pressure is released, and the rocket goes up. These are the materials that will be needed to build the water rocket. The first thing you will need is 2 2-liter bottles. The smooth 2-liter bottles are going to work better. It's easier to put the parts together. You'll also need 2 small pieces of cardboard. These pieces of cardboard are cut to 3 inches by 5 inches. You will need a small piece of PVC pipe. You will need a thin sheet of foam padding. You will need a trash bag. You will need some string. Now the tools you will need to build the water rocket, you will need a hot glue gun, some hot glue sticks. You will need an X-Acto knife, some duct tape, scissors, a ruler, and a permanent marker. Some materials you will need to decorate the water rocket, some spray paint, a small bit of PVC pipe. This is to put into the water rocket while spray painting so you don't get your hands messy. Some stickers and some markers. You can also use anything else that you might need or want to decorate the water rocket. What you will need to launch the rocket, you will need a launch pad. These can be bought online or they can be built. It's just easier to buy one online. The link to purchase this is found in the description down below. You will need a long wooden rod. This is to keep the rocket going straight up in the air. You can also get an altimeter. This is to measure the exact height of the water rocket. You will also need a tire pump. A manual or electronic one will be fine. Let's get started building this rocket. Let's build the body of the rocket. The first thing you will need to do is fill one of the 2 liters up with water. That's to prevent the plastic from warping when using the hot glue gun. While you're filling the bottle with water and cutting the fins, let the hot glue gun warm up. Now that we have filled one of the 2 liters with water, we're going to make the fins out of cardboard. With the 3 by 5 sheets of cardboard, cut them diagonally. We'll have 4 fins when we're done. Now that I have the 4 fins made, I'm going to glue them to the body of the rocket. When I'm putting the fins on, I want the bottom of the fin just to line up just before the bottle starts to curve. Now let's attach the fins. Notice that I attached the fins with hot glue, but I also put hot glue on both sides of all the fins to keep them nice and secure. The hot glue does not take long to dry. Once it's dried, we're going to use duct tape to attach the fins, just to keep it extra secure. Notice how I've attached all the fins to the body of the rocket using duct tape. This will keep the fins nice and secure to the rocket when launched. And this is how to build the body of the rocket. Now let's build the payload section of the rocket. For the payload section, we'll only need half of that second 2-liter bottle. A 2-liter is about 1 foot tall. We need to cut this 2-liter in half, so at 6 inches. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that ruler and a marker, and I'm going to mark 6 inches all the way around the 2-liter. Now that I've marked the 2-liter in half, I'm going to make a small incision with the X-Acto knife. Once I've made the small incision, I can use the scissors to cut all the way around. We will be using the bottom part of the 2-liter for the payload of the rocket. The top part will be set aside for the nose cone later. Now that we have the payload portion of the rocket, we're going to take that foam sheet, cut a long ways so we have a strip of foam. This is going to be what the nose cone rests on. Like we did with the body of the rocket, let's fill the payload with water so the plastic doesn't warp when we're using the hot glue gun. Now that we have filled the payload with water, we can use hot glue to attach the nose cone rest all around. Now, you want to place it, there are indentations on the 2-liter. You want to place the nose cone rest just above where those valleys end. That will ensure the nose cone just rests on top of the payload. So let's go ahead and attach the nose cone rest. Now the nose cone rest won't go all the way around the bottle. That's a good thing. We do want a small gap there. That is where the guide ring will go. So let's go ahead and place the guide ring. Notice I put hot glue on the guide ring, attached it to the payload, then I'll put hot glue on each side to stabilize it. Now that I've attached the guide ring with hot glue, I'm going to use a little bit of duct tape just to keep it nice and secure to the payload. At this point, we are done with the hot glue. We can empty the payload of the water. Now that we have emptied the payload of water, we're going to make small incisions with the X-Acto knife to the top to secure the parachute. Now this is optional, but you can add a small opening about 1 inch squared for an altimeter to be placed. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to leave one of the flaps on so it does stay secure. Now that we have a small incision for the altimeter, we have completed the payload of the water rocket. Now let's make the nose cone to the water rocket. To make the nose cone, the top half of that 2-liter that was cut in half will be used. 2 small holes will need to be placed on the nose cone in order to attach the nose cone to the payload. You can use an X-Acto knife or scissors, but it's easier to just use a hole punch. Now let's set the nose cone aside and make the parachute. For the parachute, you will need a trash bag. The first thing that needs to be done is cut the end of the trash bag off. Now the trash bag can be opened and it should resemble a tube. Now what I need to do is find a seam and cut along the seam. That way I have one smooth sheet of plastic. Now that I have one smooth sheet of plastic, I want to place this as flat as possible on the table. What you want to do is grab the center of the sheet of plastic and pull up. That will make the largest possible parachute. It should look something like this. Take the scissors and cut that part out. Now this part can be unraveled and it should be circular. Now we need to place holes on the side to connect the string. To make the holes even, we're going to need to fold this sheet in half 3 times. Now we can cut along the edge to smooth out the sides. This will make the side smooth. Before we unravel it, we need to place a hole in the center. this will place 3 sets of holes opposite of each other. To do that, I just take the scissors, find a spot, poke a hole through. Twist the scissors just to make those holes extra large. Now we can unravel the parachute. Should have 4 sets of pairs of holes across from each other. We're going to stretch string across the parachute 4 times and tie them into the holes. Now we're going to tie the edges of each string to the holes. A simple double knot should do. Now that we've tied the string to the side, the string shouldn't be completely taut, but it shouldn't have any extra loose stuff. The string should lie flat on that sheet of plastic. Now to attach the parachute to the payload, grab about 1 foot of string. Take all 4 pieces of string that are attached to the parachute, bundle them in the center, tie that string to the center of the parachute. Now tie that 1 string to that incision in the payload. Now that we've attached the parachute to the payload, we're going to attach the nose cone to the payload. To do that, you're going to need about 2 to 3 feet of string. You want the nose cone string to be longer than the parachute so the nose cone can fall away while the parachute is deployed. Tie one end to the nose cone. Now tie the other end to the same incision that the parachute was attached to on the payload. And that is how you attach the nose cone to the payload. So this completes the payload and the nose cone of the rocket.
So now that we've completed all 3 sections to the water rocket, we can now put all 3 sections together for decoration. Now on the payload, what I've done is I've put masking tape. That's to make a window. I'm going to spray paint over all of this and that window will be clear. If I put an egg in the payload, I want to be able to see if it's cracked. Or if I want to put a camera in there, I want to be able to take some nice video from the launch. I've also taped the altimeter entrance closed with Scotch tape. That's to prevent spray paint from getting inside of the payload. The payload will fit snugly onto the body of the rocket. Make sure that everything's like, make sure that that guide ring isn't in the way of the fins, because once you spray paint it, the spray paint lines will be lined up like this. Then what we're gonna do is we'll put the parachute into the nose cone. Now the parachute doesn't have to be perfect because all we're doing is we're spray painting, we're not launching it. Now that the parachute is safely inside of the nose cone, I'm going to use a little bit of tape to tape the nose cone down. This is to prevent the nose cone from falling off while spray painting. Now what you should do is use a little bit of masking tape to tape over the nose cone rest. That really doesn't need to be spray painted. Now the rocket is ready to be spray painted. Now in terms of safety, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wear some gloves and I'm going to put a mask on. We're going to go outside to spray paint just to avoid the fumes. Now so I don't get any paint on me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cap off the body of the rocket. I'm going to place a small piece of PVC pipe in there. That way I can hold it and I can spray paint the whole rocket without having to hold the rocket and getting paint on me. I'm gonna bring a piece of cardboard so I can spray paint onto it so I don't get any on the grass or onto any concrete. Once I'm done spray painting, I'll let this set overnight just so it dries out. I can set it in something using this PVC pipe, or I could hang it with that guide rod. All right, let's go outside and paint this water rocket. So now that we've spray painted the water rocket and given it a chance to dry, I'm ready to take the masking tape off to reveal the window and the nose cone rest. All right, now that we've finished taking the tape off, now we're ready to finish decorating it. So when decorating a rocket, I like to make a theme. And for this rocket, I've chosen the James Webb Space Telescope. So what I've done is I've cut hexagons out of gold stickers, and I'm gonna make the James Webb Space Telescope design on this rocket. The last thing we need to do is take the tape off that's connecting the nose cone, and our rocket will be complete. All right, now our water rocket is complete. So if you look at the water rocket, it's got 4 fins, 2 pairs each across from each other. You can see here, it's got some nice decorations. It's got the guide ring that's gonna go on the guide pole. It has the nose cone rest, that's what the nose cone rests on, and it should just gently rest on there. It should not be snug. I put a window on mine, so if we put an egg in there, I can see that if it's cracked. I also plan on putting a camera in there so I can get some good views from this rocket being launched. The water rocket also has a small entrance for the altimeter. That way the height can be measured accurately. All right, now that we've completed building this rocket, let's get to the best part. Let's launch this rocket. Before you go outside to launch, you want to fill the body of the rocket with the water. Now, how much water you put into the water rocket is a delicate balance. So you do want enough to launch it high up, but you don't want too much to weigh it down. I've discovered the optimal amount is about 1/3 full. So this is 2 liters, so somewhere in between 1/2 liter and 0.7 liters, that is going to be the optimal amount of water. Now make sure you keep the cap of the rocket, because once you fill it with water, you don't want to spill that water. You can put the cap back on the body, so that way you have that water set. Once you fill the body of the rocket with water, the next thing you want to do is put the payload on. So anything you want to put in the payload, that's what you're going to put that in. I left that window open. I'm going to put the GoPro in there so we can see the launch from the rocket's perspective. Now before you put the payload on, make sure the guide ring isn't going to be in the way of any of the fins. So that way the guide rod won't hit the fin getting into the guide ring. So once you put everything you need in there, you're going to put the payload on. You want it to fit nice and snug. Now you can put tape around to secure it, but it is going to be secure enough where it should not fall off. The next thing that needs to go on the rocket is the parachute. Now the parachute is going to fit securely into the nose cone, but you don't want to jam that parachute in. It should fall out gently. Easiest way to do that is just sort of ball it up. Make sure that you don't get any of the strings tangled. Kind of ball it up and then place it gently into the nose cone. Then you want to just sort of set the string on top. That nose cone should just be resting on top of there. We want to make sure that it's loose enough and it's just setting on top of that nose cone rest. What's going to keep the nose cone on is going to be the air resistance pushing down on the nose cone. Once it starts to fall, that air resistance won't be there and it should fall off deploying the parachute. So now our rocket is ready to launch. Let's go outside, set up the launch pad, and launch the rocket.
2, 1.
Wow, that was very high, but
And let's see.